Without further ado, good morning, Hurricanes. Today you're going to be in for an amazing experience. You will be hearing from an influential attorney in the state of Florida who has dedicated her life to public service and defending the rights of Florida citizens. Ms. Aramis Ayala is a humanitarian, civil rights advocate, cancer survivor, and former Florida state attorney who is also the first African-American state attorney in Florida. She is also a professor for the University of Central Florida and Florida A&M University. She earned her bachelor's from the University of Michigan, a master's from the University of Central Florida,
nice.
Woo! And Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. I'm not sure what you say for that one. There you go. Today you will hear about her journey to becoming an influential attorney and her passions that led her to this career in public service. Without further ado, please welcome to the stage Ms. Ayala.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I talk all the time. I have the pleasure of meeting a lot of people. I've traveled the state of Florida, and I've been in a lot of places, but I can tell you in front of middle schoolers it's the scariest place to be. And why is that? Because all the reasons that you guys get concerned about coming to school, all the stuff that goes on, it feels that way too. I have a 6th grader, and she was very critical of my preparation to speak today. So hopefully I will make her proud, and hopefully I will not be too outrageous to you guys. As I said, my name is Aramis Ayala. I am an attorney. How many of you all have any desire or interest in being an attorney? Okay. All right. How many of you all have a desire to get a good grade in a class that deals with the law? Okay, a little more hands go up. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did and how I got here, and then hopefully give you guys a little bit of information, because there's so many opportunities in the law that get you where you might want to be. And I started off wanting to be an attorney when I was in the 5th grade. And I say that because a lot of you are thinking about what you want to be. Some of your hands went up when I said, you know, who wants to be a lawyer? Some of you said absolutely not. But I want to tap into you a little bit more, because it's more than just being a lawyer or whatever else that you might want to be. It is about why you want to be that. See, I wanted to be an attorney because I love truth and justice. If you think about the concept of truth and justice, those were things that I liked even when I was a kid. I hated things that were unfair. There are some of you in here who don't like things that aren't fair. I love to see everyone getting a fair shake. I don't like inequality. Sometimes people being treated differently, and then other people sit by and watch them be treated differently, and we find justification for it. It may seem like it has nothing to do with being a lawyer, but for me it had everything to wanting to be a lawyer, because I wanted to see a level playing field. No matter how tall you are, how short you are, what color hair you are, what color you are, where your family's from, what language you speak, none of that mattered to me. I wanted to ensure that everyone had the same education, that everyone could live where they wanted to live, that everyone had a right to wear what they wanted to wear, to say what they wanted to say, and to be respected. So that was from a child. When I say that I want to dig a little bit deeper with you all, the question is, what kind of things do you love? When you think about what do you like, not what do you like when you're around your friends, because everyone tends to like the same things, whatever's cool. But when you're laying in bed because you have to go to bed but you're not tired, what kind of things do you think about? When you're sitting in a place and your teacher is talking about different things in civics or different things in sociology, and you think to yourself, well, that is fair. I like how that. Those are the ways that you start navigating your career path, because those are things that you love. I love to learn. I love learning. I don't like being in the middle of a place where everyone knows something and I don't. See, there's nothing wrong with not knowing the right answer. I always tell my students at UCF, and anywhere that I go, a lot of times people don't raise their hand because they don't want to feel dumb. You guys ever feel that way? Anybody? Okay. I want you to remember this, and I hope nobody here, none of the adults get mad at me, because it's kind of harsh what I'm going to say, but I want you to remember this. You can either choose to feel dumb, or you can remain dumb. When you don't ask the question, you're in the same place that you were when you really didn't know the answer. So it's all about asking the questions, and that's what I'm never afraid of it, right? Like even as we're sitting here today, I'm 48 years old, and you guys are in your teens somewhere, 12, somewhere, what are you guys, 12, 13, 14? Okay, so somewhere, if one of you all corrects me, most of you are probably gonna laugh, because it seems funny that a kid would correct someone, but the truth is, that's how I grow. I've learned enough to know that I don't know everything. I know enough to know that even if you know one thing more than me, I probably know a whole lot more. So it's about gaining enough information and education and staying close to gaining knowledge and growing that even if you miss one, you still have 10 more. So I love the idea of, like I said, truth and justice. I love education. And the last thing that I'll share with you that helped me get to where I wanted to be in my career, I believe in humanity. See, everyone doesn't feel that way. There are people who say, oh, well, we can throw that person away. They messed up. They don't smell good. They don't wear the right things. They don't say the right thing. They don't hang out with the right people. But the truth is, there are people like me, even sitting here today, that just believe in the goodness of people. Doesn't matter how many things you failed. It doesn't matter how many times you've had to start over. It doesn't matter whether your parents are absent or present, whether you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter what designers you wear and what you don't wear. The reality is, I believe in you. Each one of you could have a one-on-one conversation with me, and I would be able to see something in you that makes me know that you have a bright future ahead of you. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter any of that. The truth is, we all have something worth believing in. And until we take our last breath, until our life is over, there's still hope in us. And you guys are still very young, so I want to remind you that there are people who believe in you, but as I share those things with you, when I talk about the idea of loving truth and justice, when I share the fact that I love information and education, that I believe in humanity, that is what encouraged me in the 5th grade. I wanted to fight for what's right. I wanted to fight for people, and I wanted to ensure that I had enough education and information to impact the world. So I finished school, I did well, I graduated from high school, and then I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I struggled a little bit. That's the first time I had any struggle, because all through school I never saw anything but an A. And then I got to school and I learned something about college. College wasn't just about how smart I was, it was about how wise I was to handle all of the issues in life. Did I know to go to my room or go to sleep at the right time? Did I wait for the last minute to study for a test? That's when college got really hard, and then I saw things that were not A's. And I struggled a lot, but guess what? I still loved truth and justice, and I still wanted education. So I fought harder, I studied harder, and I studied which is the LSAT, it's your entrance test to get into law school. And I was admitted into law school. And guess what? That was even harder than undergrad. Because now the rigor of law school mattered. And I share that not to discourage anyone who wants to be a lawyer, but I share that because anything you do in life is going to be difficult. All of it. So you better love what you do and understand that we don't stop because it's hard. We stop because it's not a fit. My dad told me years ago there's a difference between giving up and letting go. And sometimes you do let things go, but that means that you grab onto something else. And it too may be hard, just like law school was for me. But I fought through my first year, and I fought through my second year, and I started getting better and better and better and believing in myself, and then tragedy hit. I was in my second year of law school, and I had swelling in my throat. And of course, at that time, I thought I knew everything. I ended up in the emergency room at the hospital. I was dying of cancer with the tumor suffocating me, and I couldn't breathe. And had I not gone to the hospital, I would not be standing before you here today. But what I learned in that moment was even in the darkest moments, even then, somebody believed enough in me. And my life was spared. And I sat out of law school, went through every single thing that deals with chemotherapy, where I had to receive inpatient medication. Obviously, I went into remission, but all of the weight gain couldn't fit my clothes. I lost all of my hair, my skin, everything that any of you may have ever seen on television. Do y'all even watch television anymore? Everything on TikTok. Whatever you watch, you might see something. And I went through that, and it was very difficult, but I didn't stop. I finished that 3rd year of law school, and I did well. And then it was time for me to take the bar exam, and I was ready to just win and keep going all the way, and there was another delay. At that time, I was noticing some pain when I would walk. And the doctors told me I had a condition, you don't have to remember this, it's called avascular necrosis. My hip bones had deteriorated and I couldn't walk. I had to have my hips replaced and I had to learn how to walk again. And every time I tell people that, I say, but look at me now, because I walk just fine. Because it's all about overcoming. It's all about getting better. And I came through. And after I finished all of the chemotherapy and all of the surgeries, I took the bar exam. How many of you know anything about the bar exam? Anybody? Yes. Okay. The bar exam is your test to be an attorney. If you've ever had a test in here, somebody tell me, what is the longest test you've ever had? Yes.
SSN.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you have tests for several hours. The bar exam is 2 days. You start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you get an hour lunch break, you go back at 1, and then you write until 5. And then they give you an evening to go spend the night in your hotel to practice, and then you come back the next day and do the exact same thing. And then the worst part about it is everyone in the world knows that you took the bar exam, so if you don't pass it, everyone knows that you didn't pass it. So there's a lot of humiliation looking you in your eyes if you don't do well. So the bar exam is a 2-day test. However, you've had an opportunity to learn it, and if you love it, it may have been hard, but you went through it. So I passed the bar exam, and I was in Florida, and I had this dream that I told you guys about of being a lawyer. But when I was in the 5th grade, I had a very specific dream. I said that I wanted to be a prosecutor, because my understanding of a prosecutor was the person who seeks justice. Remember, I told you I love truth and justice. And even though a lot of people had a different idea of what being a prosecutor is, people think a prosecutor is those who send people to jail, who are hard on, people, and they destroy lives and they do all of this. My idea of being a prosecutor was protecting crime victims. My idea of being a prosecutor was making my community safer. My idea of being a prosecutor was, at the end of every case, seeing a higher level of justice, and that's what I fought for. So I started as a young lawyer, and it was really difficult because I had to make some money decisions. I wasn't making a lot of money, but remember I told you I loved the idea of it. So when there were people who were offering me other jobs to work at car companies, General Motors, to make literally 3 times what I was making as an assistant state attorney, I had to make a decision. Was I going to chase what everybody else thought I should do, or was I going to do what was best for me? And I stayed. I practiced as an assistant state attorney, and I loved my job. And then something happened about 3 years in. All of the justice that I believed in came crashing down when, unfortunately, despite all of the integrity that I had dealt with prosecutors, police officers, and witnesses, judges being fair, officers doing their jobs, being remarkable, I had an officer be untruthful. And it costed a person their life. They were incarcerated as a result of it. And I believe now that I was no longer seeking justice, but I was looking at being a person in the mirror who was perpetuating injustice. And this is where you have to have long talks with yourself. Not the kind that you have with your friends when everyone's listening, but the kinds that you have privately in your head that let you know this is who I am. And I realized that I could not do that anymore. And I left and I went to the other side. I became a public defender. A public defender is a defense attorney who represents people who cannot afford to hire their own lawyers. And I did that for 10 years. I loved that job because what it did, it taught me, again, about humanity. Remember I told you I love truth and justice. I told you that I loved education, but I also told you I believe in people. So I was able to look at all of the cases, and it didn't matter how horrific a person's act was, I was able to see the humanity in them. And it didn't mean that they wouldn't pay a price for the crime that they committed, because when you do something wrong, there are consequences to pay. What it meant is that we don't give up on people. And I loved having that opportunity to have a conversation with someone who may have committed a horrific crime, to let them know two things. Number one, you will pay the consequences for what you've done. I cannot get you out of this. I will give you the best representation that I can, but outside of that, you have a consequence to pay. And number two, your life is not over. You have an opportunity to do better. Tomorrow will come. And that's what I loved about that job. The more time that I spent as a public defender, I had an opportunity to start training other lawyers. So when I was training, it wasn't just about understanding the statutes and the laws. I also had an opportunity to train them about what was going on inside of them, to hopefully help them be a better person. And then ultimately, I left that job because guess what? The talks of money started hitting me. And I thought I'd pursue something in civil law because the money was way more. But when I got there, it still wasn't a fit. Do you see the theme of how I keep trying, but it keeps drawing me back? That's one of the natural things in life. It doesn't matter where you go. The natural place that you're supposed to be is going to draw you back. That's why you always have to trust yourself. And then finally, after I left the civil litigation, I went back to be a prosecutor. Now some people may say, oh, why'd you go back to be a prosecutor? You love defense work. You weren't seeking justice when you were, perpetuating lies and it was no longer justice. I said, because now I have nearly 10 years of practice under my belt. I know what I'm doing, and I know how to change the culture of prosecution. So I went back to the prosecutor's office, loved what I did. I prosecuted domestic violence cases where women had been abused by their spouses, and I also prosecuted sex crimes where people had been abused by either relatives or others, and those were very good opportunities for me to fight and seek for justice. I did that for another 3 years. But what I realized is that my cases each day weren't changing the culture. I realized that in that prosecutor's office, we would often call people names to justify how we treat them. If you realize any mistreatment amongst you all, what you may see on your social media or whatever, the reason people can mistreat people is because the way they talk about them. It is extremely difficult to talk about someone in a positive way and treat them in a bad way. So what I realized that it wasn't just people, it was prosecutors who were calling people savages, who were calling them monsters, who were saying that they should die, and giving very inhumane ideas that I was not okay with. And at that point, I realized I needed to go higher. I wanted to change the culture. And I left the office with something in mind, running to be the elected state attorney. See, you can be an assistant state attorney and you work for someone. And the person you work for sets the tone of the office. They set policies, they hire and fire people, they determine what the office is going to represent. And I realized that I was not proud of the office I was working for. But if you're not proud of something and you work for someone, you got two options. You can quit or you can go higher. I made a choice to go higher. I left the office. I decided to run for state attorney. That is an elected position where you make all of the decisions for every prosecution. So in Orange and Osceola counties, between 2017 and 2021, every person who was prosecuted in my name. because I wanted to do better. I worked to change the culture of the office because I recognized that there were some racial issues in our criminal justice system and I wasn't afraid to talk about them. I was willing to talk about all of the issues that we were dealing with, trying to bridge this issue between the police and some of the communities, recognizing that the people who are questioning whether or not they have a good relationship with police are often the ones who need the police the most. So trying to bridge that and understanding that we really do all need each other. And those were some of my priorities. I wanted to make sure that we weren't calling people names to justify certain sentences. And when I was running, I was interviewed by a newspaper, and they asked me, do you know there's never been a black state attorney in the state of Florida? And I didn't at that time, because what I realized is I wasn't running to be the first black person. I was running for justice. While I recognize the power of history, and while I recognize how deeply important that is, we have to have diversity because it brings a different mindset to the table. It brings different experiences to the table, and it celebrates who we are. If you have a group of men talking about what happens to women, we're missing an element called a woman. If you have a group of African Americans talking about what happens to Latinos, but no Latinos are at the table, we're missing an element. So when I realized that there were a group of white attorneys who were having conversations about what should happen in our criminal justice system, yes, now I bring a different element. But I wasn't running for that reason. I was running for justice. I was running to define justice in a way that represented who I was. And when I won that election, in a very decisive victory, everyone celebrated this moment. But what was important, don't just celebrate the color of my skin, celebrate the heart that I bring. Celebrate the change that I bring. And that was a lot of challenge that I had. It was not easy. Being the first is never easy. There's nothing easy about it. But when I look back at the changes that I was able to make, at the conversations that I was able to start, and at the level of justice, by redefining justice that I was able to do, I have no regrets. When I left office over the death penalty. You know, some of you may be familiar with that. I had concerns about the death penalty. And I know my time is running a little bit short, so I'll tell the story in a short way. When it came to the death penalty, in Orange and Osceola County, there was only one person's signature who determined who got the death penalty, and that was mine. A lot of people can talk about, getting the death penalty and how someone may deserve it. Yes, you may deserve to die, but do I deserve to kill? And that was a real big issue that I took very seriously. And I stood against the death penalty, and I said what I said, and I don't regret it. There's a level of dignity that I have as a result of my decision. Now, did that come with a whole lot? Yes, the governor came down on me. Yes, I received death threats. I received a noose in the mail reminding me of the horrible racial history of this country. I received a whole lot, but one thing I did not lose was my human dignity. It was worth it all for me. So I ask you, what do you hold on to, no matter how difficult it is? When you're in spaces, don't ever forget that you can trust yourself. Being who you are is what matters. It may not seem like it's popular at times, especially here in middle school, but being a person of integrity, being a person who is kind, those things matter. And you're setting the stage for the things that will be needed as we all grow and get older. Trust yourself. Be kind, and understand that your career is not necessarily based upon the title, but it's based upon what's in your heart. And I shared with you what was in my heart. Those issues were fighting for truth and justice. I love education, and I believe in humanity. I thank you all for your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
So your awesome teachers reminded me that this class actually ends at 11. So what I would like to do is maybe give an extra 5 minutes for Q&A. Is that okay? Okay. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and if one of the teachers, if it's one of your students, you can. Yeah, that works. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You got kids?
Do I have kids? I do. I have a daughter who is 9 years old, and I have another daughter who is 11 years old. She's in the 6th grade. And it's interesting, go ahead. Oh, and it's interesting that you asked that because no matter what my career is, my favorite job is being a mom. Yeah. Yes? I'm sorry, is it okay if I just?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yes ma'am. When I said there's racial problems, are you talking about in our system or how I was treated when okay, so I'm a person, again, I said I love data and information. I don't believe in perpetuating lies. Some of the studies that I talked about is that blacks and Latinos are overly represented in our criminal justice system. And a lot of times we recognize that their bails are higher, so it's harder for them to get out of jail. Their sentences are longer, and they have more encounters with law enforcement officers because their communities are often policed higher. So those were some of the concerns that I had, because a lot of times when you look at our system, maybe people don't mean to, but whether or not you mean to doesn't change the fact that it's what's really happening. And those are one of the things that I wanted to fight for. Clear? Yes. Yes.
So like when you while you're sitting here, what was one problem that you deal with that wasn't the death penalty?
What was what? I'm sorry.
Like one problem that you have to deal with that wasn't the death penalty. Like did you did someone ever say something to you? Like when you did that police pull you over or something because of racial or something like that?
Yes, are you talking about YouTube?
What?
Are you talking about YouTube?
I think so.
Yeah, so yes, there is a video with over more than 10 million views of me being stopped by police officers while I was a state attorney, yes. After I made the decision for death penalty, I became a target of a lot of anger and hate, but what I had to come to terms with the fact it wasn't about me, it was about what I stood for. So it was all good. Yes, I was stopped by the police, and I did absolutely nothing wrong. I did not receive a ticket. The questions about the tint on my car, it was not illegal. As a matter of fact, it was a state-issued vehicle, so there was nothing there. I was going through a predominantly black area, to the Paramore area in Orlando, leaving teaching at FAMU's law school, and I was stopped by the police, and it was very unpleasant. But again, remember I said maintaining your dignity. It didn't matter how I felt, it mattered how I behaved. And if I would have acted a fool, like sometimes I'm tempted to, just like a lot of people, it would have been a different result. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yes, in the back, I see you right here.
What college did you choose and where?
What?
College.
I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad, where I received a bachelor's in political science. I went to University of Detroit, where I received my law degree, and then while practicing law, I went back and got a master's in criminal justice from UCF. Yes. Absolutely, I questioned it right now. The question was whether or not I want to be an attorney. Absolutely, because being an attorney can mean so many different things to so many people. When I'm fighting for justice the way that I believe it should be fought, I'm in conversations with other people who are like, that's not what attorneys do. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. But I had something in me that was like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, and I pushed through. So absolutely, that self-doubt can always creep in. Fight through. Yes?
If this job didn't work out for you, would you have chosen another career? Or what would it have been?
If law hadn't worked out, that's a difficult question, because it was so natural for me. There was not a backup plan. I was going to make it happen no matter what. Whether it was delayed, whether it was different, I was not going to be an attorney. Yes, in the back, what's your name?
Were you ever treated poorly as an attorney?
Was I what?
Treated poorly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's part of life. So if I were to, by a show of hands, how many people have ever encountered a bully? Even if it's not at you, okay? And if you're not raising your hand, it's probably because it's you. Just kidding. So bullying, you think, is just part now. There are bullies in life. Like, I've been in a political world, and there are political bullies. There are lawyers who are bullies. And the truth is, being who you are and standing up to bullies and gathering your people around you is what's all part of it. But the truth is, the biggest bully is the one who's right. So never lose the position of being right. But yes, I've been mistreated. I've been called all types of names, racial slurs. I've had memes made of me. They're actually kind of funny sometimes. I've had it all. And it's just, unfortunately, it's part of life. Yes? Doing what? It is not. It is not. Now, middle schoolers, yeah, this is like the second time in life, because y'all are different. No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Like, y'all don't laugh at nothing. Y'all, like, when I do something wild, you stare. Like, everyone is just, you don't know if you're landing, if you're not landing. I'm the person, when I speak, I try to respond to the energy that I'm getting. So when there's a low energy, it's extremely difficult, because if I respond to you guys, I would be talking like this the whole time, and then you would just, right? Like that's so it takes a whole lot more. But yeah, are you interested in speaking? Okay. Richard, yes.
Were you in charge of the death penalty?
Say it again.
Were you in charge of the death penalty?
I was in charge of the death penalty.
So, did you make anybody take the death penalty when you went off?
I'm actually proud to say that no one has died in my name. I want to be very clear. I am not trying to persuade anyone either way. That's not my job here. I think that everyone has a right to feel how you feel about the death penalty. It's just been part of my journey. And the way that I share, even right now, I'm teaching a class at UCF where my college students are learning about the death penalty. I tell them we don't talk about what we feel, we don't talk about what we think, we talk about the data. We talk about the evidence of it. And actually at the end of class, the semester, we're taking a trip to death row so they can experience that in and of themselves. Yeah. Yes?
What helped you overcome your obstacles? What helped you overcome your obstacles? Breakdowns.
I think it's about keeping your eye on the prize, right? Like if I am trying to walk to that back wall, I don't ever look at the obstacle. Even if I trip over this cord, when I'm tripped, I'm keeping my eye on the wall. If a chair gets in front of me, I'm pushing the chair out of the way and I keep walking. So it's one step towards your goal without ever taking your eye off the goal. Because the minute you take your eye off the goal and focus on the obstacle, it gets bigger. Whatever you focus on is what gets bigger. It's no different than, have you ever ridden in a plane?
Yes.
Have you ever ridden an airplane?
Yes.
When you go up in an airplane, everything looks really small, right? But when you hone in on something and you focus, it actually seems to look bigger. Right now, this room seemed really big, but as I'm looking at you, you seem bigger. So keeping your eye on what you're focused on, and I mean like everyone else is blocked out. It's me and you right now. And that's how you have to be with your goal. No matter what, my eyes are on that goal. Even if you get a splash of acid in your eyes, you close your eyes and you still see the goal. Never letting the vision of you getting to the other side come to pass. Never ever letting go of that. Yes?
What are you not?
Say it again.
Like, what are you not? You said you were an attorney, and then you said student. So
I'm a professor. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Central Florida. So I'm still an attorney. To remain an attorney in the state of Florida, I still pay my dues, I still do my continuing legal education, but my official job right now is an assistant professor at the University of Central Florida.
Last two questions.
Yes.
So, when we were like speaking, we said that. So, did you ever actually think there was a better way to do it, or was it just you were always doing
Yeah, of course I thought there were otherwise. I just didn't know what they were. Like, I wanted to be an attorney, and unfortunately, I had people in my life who were helping me understand that my passion for justice, my analytical mind, that would take me to be a lawyer. There were a couple times I thought about being an engineer. You know, when I was growing up, you know, I was really good at math and science, and everyone was like, oh, I'm like, I don't like that. Like, just so good at it doesn't mean that. So yeah, I did think about it. Yes?
Then my question is, do you enjoy like what you do?
I love what I do. I love what I do because I think about when I got sick, what people would say about me when I'm not living anymore. And every day you create that. So even me being here, if I were to walk out this door and take my last breath, it was my hope that I left a positive image, that I spoke positively. That's what my career has been. So at all times, I'm always thinking about the legacy that I live, and my career in law has given me something that I'm proud of.
All right, guys, let's give her a round of applause.